Welcome to Fintech Daydreaming, the podcast that dives into the world of banking technologies and the ever-changing landscape of fintech companies. We bring you real-life examples from global and local thought leaders, as well as experts working within the financial industry, and seek out the best stories from the front lines of financial services innovation, where dreams of industry pioneers meet reality. Hosted by Paul Krogdahl and Ville Sontu. This is Fintech Daydreaming.
We're back! Yet another episode of Fintech Daydreaming, and as is always the case, every other episode is a Nordic Fintech Highlights. We're going to do another dive into what's hot, what's different, what's new, and what's been happening in the Nordics when it comes to fintech and related subjects. And as always, we can't do this without having our friends from Helsinki Fintech Farm with us. But before we go there, I'm Paul Krogdahl. I'm going to be a host for this episode. Everybody knows who I am by now, I hope. And as always, I cannot do this without my fantastic good friend and partner in this journey of Fintech Daydreaming, Ville. So Ville, how are you, my friend? We've been traveling and things are interesting.
Yeah, we're just fresh out of the Baltic Fintech Days, which happened in Lithuania, Vilnius, and we had the privilege to be on stage to talk about embedded finance and all the good stuff related to it. So again, it was a fantastic time. And of course, the other big news that we have is that we just now, as we're recording, we were just published an episode together with Breaking Banks, where we had Brett King talk with us for about an hour. And the big news there is not the fact that Brett was on the podcast for the third time. It is the fact that we were really doing a crossover episode with Breaking Banks. So we're presuming we will have at least a couple of new listeners into the stream. So welcome to Fintech Daydreaming to all of you who found us through Breaking Banks. And I hope you enjoy this version of the podcast as well as the one you listened with Brett.
I'm wondering, Ville, whether this is a starting point of Breaking Banks Nordics.
Oh yeah. I think either we do a spin-off or we do rebranding. Let's see. Let's.
I think we could have, Breaking Banks Nordics, a fintech daydreaming extravaganza.
Yeah, sounds dangerous, but okay, we'll leave it there.
I think it sounds good, but I actually have to admit that the very first thing I did once it had got published, because we tried to line up so that we published on our channels the same time as Breaking Banks published on their channels. The very first thing I did was I went to the Breaking Banks website and I took a screenshot of our episode there. I'm considering framing it and hanging it on the wall until the excitement wears off, and then we'll see what happens. But it's fantastic to see Fintech Daydreaming on the Breaking Banks website, right?
Indeed it is.
Yes. But we digress. Let's come back into to reality, get our feet back on the ground and focus in onto Nordic fintech news. And of course, we can't do this without our good friend Janne. So Janne, how are you?
I'm very good, thanks. I was not in the Baltic Fintech Weeks, unfortunately, but I can see you are really tan, Paul. So was it from there?
No. That's just Femi doing the fantastic work of editing everything and making me look so beautiful.
I see, okay. Maybe he can also touch upon my appearance as well.
Yes, absolutely. He can make you 10 years younger and grey like Ville and me. I mean, sort of the grey maturity adds to it.
Yeah, we should do this, this Studio Ghibli style version. So yeah, let's see. Let's stick with the trends that are out there now.
Yeah, well, I mean, the big hip trendy thing at the moment is filters, right? So maybe we should start having Fintech Daydreaming filters. Play around with our appearance and those sort of things.
Maybe not.
Anyway, we digress. With that, Janne, I'm really keen and interested to hear from you. What's been happening in the fintech scene for the last month?
Yes, there's been happening a lot. Funding side, not so much, but as previous month as well, a lot of M&A activities going on, especially a few transactions in the accounting space. Also, if you remember, couple of months ago, the Apple or iPhone tap to pay just waved over Sweden. We had a lot of the big players announcing it almost like simultaneously on the Swedish market, and now we have the same effect here in Finland. So a lot of Apple tap to pay payment providers now in Finland. So let's see next time I go buy groceries, how will the payment terminal look like? On the banking side, also quite a many deals, banks investing in tech. Something that really caught my attention is that Tietoevry actually signed plenty of new deals with different banks, both renewing their card systems, but also core renewals, which I find interesting because there seems to be so much different BaaS and SaaS and CaaS solutions in the market, but seems that the banks are still like preferring the bit more traditional and mature companies who are maybe has some local expertise as well.
Overall, good month. Two interesting things that came out of what you said that I want to poke on a little bit. You say that there's a growth in mergers and acquisitions. Are you seeing a trend shifting from funding more towards mergers and acquisitions?
Yeah, I could say so. I'm not sure, is it more like because the funding market is not the best, banks or fintechs are getting in trouble, and then they are trying to find someone to acquire them or so. But also I find it as it could be also a good thing that the market consolidates a bit and we get a bit more leverage and more larger platforms as the trend is nowadays.
And is this mergers and acquisitions predominantly of fintechs, or are the banks getting involved here as well?
On the banking side, not so much yet. So fintechs mostly. There's been, of course, a lot of theory like how the banking market will look like in always like let's see in 5 years or let's see in 10 years, but nothing dramatic has of course happened now very recently. There has been some cases within the smaller banks, but nothing too dramatic at least yet.
Any reflections from you, Ville, on the news?
Yeah, well, actually, maybe this is just a calm before the storm. Maybe. I mean, we're looking at what's happening in the world of global politics and economy right now, and I'm just really curious to see how next month is going to look like, and let alone the rest of this year. So yeah, almost like happy to hear that there's no big news happening at the moment, because I'm sure we're heading into more turbulent times, even on the fintech front. So we'll see what happens.
I think it's still a little bit too early for us to see the cause and effects of all of this. But it will come out in the wash over the next couple of weeks and months, right?
Yeah, and it's I've learned enough not to make any predictions in the current environment. So let's just see what happens and strap in.
Absolutely, yes. Let's strap in and enjoy the ride for the next 2 years or whatever it ends up being. But we're not a political podcast, so let's stay away from all of that and focus in on fintech and banking goodness, right?
Let's do that.
Let's do that. And with that in mind, as always, we've looked into the news headlines, we've read through them and identified a few things that have caught our interest. We tend to, I would say, have certain areas that we get excited about. We see common trends here, and as usual, maybe we'll start with you this time, Ville. What caught your eyes as you were looking through all the headlines?
Yeah, a lot of interesting stuff. Janne already mentioned the tap and pay news. I think we had like 5 of them right now this last month in the Nordics, and that's obviously always interesting to follow. But that's actually not the one that I picked. So I decided that I want to talk about Sweden's central bank, so Swedish Riksbank, who is working on offline payment solution specifically in contingency planning for war outbreak. So again, dramatic headlines, talking about wartime payments, all that stuff. So again, it's easy to see even we're not a political podcast, this has a political inline into it. But if you look through this kind of war framing of this topic, it is quite interesting. So what's happening? So Swedish central bank has been collecting information and is experimenting with offline payments. And this is not directly linked to any central bank digital currency or the e-krona project that they also did some time ago. This is actually just to make sure that they have resilience in the payment networks, even in crisis situations, whatever those might look like. And the interesting parts here, of course, are the fact that they are basically wanting to make sure that even the private sector solutions are working in an offline environment. So if in case there is an electricity outage, I guess is too much in this case, but if internet goes down or there is some kind of a digital blockade happening, so they are actually able to make payments even in offline scenarios. The other element here, which is motivating this work, of course, is the ever ongoing conversation about the role of physical cash and central bank issued liabilities in the world, which is increasingly digital. So the Swedish central banks wants to, well, not say that the central bank digital currency itself might be a solution for cash replacement, but there's also a private sector element into the discussion about replacement of cash in an offline scenario. And this is an interesting work to follow, and this will most definitely line up with the European Central Bank and their efforts to make the upcoming digital euro also work in an offline environment. So again, interesting news. Again, the addition of the private sector element is interesting. We should also note that offline payments in the private sector solutions are not uncommon. So as most countries in Europe have at some point in time experimented with versions of chip cards and being able to basically put money on a chip card from an ATM, for instance, and then using that as an offline payment method. The existing cards we have today in our pockets from the international card schemes, all of them also have offline modes that they support out of the box. They have been disabled for most places and countries and scenarios, but it could be turned on in an event like this crisis situations that they're portraying with the Swedish Riksbank scenario that they're playing out here.
So just for clarification here, when we're saying offline payments, are we talking offline with phones, or are we talking offline as in moving to cards and physical capabilities?
The classic version of that is always cards. So of having a physical separate plastic card with a chip in it, and then you use that either by putting the chip card into the terminal or tapping it at an NFC point of sale, and then using that offline communication between the card and the terminal as a way to do it. That's the way it's been done in the past. I mean, we've had, even here in Finland, we've had solutions like this in the 90s already. They never kind of took off, so it was shut down a long time ago. But it's interesting to see the lessons learned coming out of this one as well, being also impacting this current situation. But to the point of phones, yes. So the goal here is to basically have a modern version of this by doing it over phones as well, or other connected online devices. I would say anything with a secure element in it, I guess, would be my kind of guess what they're going for here. That's at least what the European Central Bank wants to achieve with the digital euro, and I would expect that the Riksbank is thinking along the same lines.
Interesting stuff. Janne, what's your view on all of this?
Yeah, definitely. Many things you don't necessarily even think about. You have the internet connection as a given thing, so it's something that doesn't cross your mind. But for sure, I noticed that there's been a lot of DORA discussion in the financial institutions even now. I mean, the regulation already took action, but there's still a lot of work to do in that matter. But yeah, the kind of focus on also the consumer side, how do we secure the normal usage as everyone is pretty much using card and I use a phone, so how can we make it also work in uncertain times when we have some bugs? But then the fun thing is that we used to pay with cards already decades ago when the internet wasn't a thing as it's now, so I guess we can bring something back from there if needed.
Yeah, exactly. Should also note, by the way, that the in context of the digital euro conversation happening right now, the Baltic countries, together with Finland, made this non-paper some time ago, maybe a few months ago, which was basically requesting for the digital euro design to include or focus on wartime resiliency aspects of the digital euros. So again, this is a very common theme in Europe right now: the sovereignty aspects and the strategic autonomy of the European Union, and even on the payment front. So yeah, interesting. There's clearly a lot of momentum behind these conversations, and my personal perspective would be that okay. It makes sense, but let's make sure that we don't do redundant stuff. So again, we have DORA already. We have a lot of resiliency already built into the private sector solutions. So let's not get too over enthusiastic and basically rebuild redundant infrastructure just because we think it's necessary, and actually look at the outcomes and how do we align these different initiatives so that they don't overlap too much. I hope that's a well understood point as we move forward in this conversation.
I think there's definitely an awful lot of unrest and uncertainty at the moment at a global level, and I can understand why all of this is going on. In actual fact, in the episode we recorded with Brett, our fantastic crossover with Breaking Banks, this came up as a discussion point there as well. We talked about cash making a partial return. You know, the Central Bank of Finland suggesting that people should have a little bit of cash in their back pockets. In Sweden as well, the central bank has said the same thing. We had a discussion of, you know, well, if everything goes black, then cash is the least of your problems. There's lots of other things that people are going to be concerned and worried about, even across to looting and whatever else might happen. We've seen things like this in the past. And one of the things that I sort of think about on all of this as well is, you know, if we're going to end up in that situation, then is really money going to be the most important thing that we are going to focus on, or are we really just going to hunker down, look after ourselves and stay safe? Because as we discussed with Brett, the next war probably is going to be a cyber war, right? And the minute that we start getting attacked at a cyber level, the first thing they're going to hit is any sort of mechanism for transactions and everything else. So how resilient do you have to make it to make sure that it's actually going to be resilient in wartime, particularly if wartime is the specific element here? So I'm wondering whether it's almost a situation that cannot be satisfied.
Well, I think this is the only other option in crisis scenarios is some form of bartering economy, and I think that nobody wants to go to that. So again, avoiding the doomsday prepping tendencies that typically pop up in these conversations, I think it makes sense to have a working monetary system in all scenarios. Whether or not that can be achieved is another question, but I think it's a goal worth going for.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, I agree with that. And the more resilience we can build into everything, the better it is. So all for it, as long, like you said, we don't build a whole load of redundancy on top of redundancy for the sake of it, right? It uses money that maybe could be better used elsewhere.
Exactly.
Yes. So, Janne, what did you pick out as your highlight for this episode?
So I brought up the news about Raisin expanding into Nordics with launching their platform in Finland. So Raisin, actually, it's a merger of two fairly similar German companies, Deposit Solutions and Raisin. And they had the idea of making depositing kind of cross bank. You could say it's a platform. So if you have a bank who's having or lacking deposits, and then you have a bank who's having excessive amount of deposits, so then you can turn the customers' deposits from bank A to bank B. So that's how they started. Essentially what banking is about, you have people who need money and people who have extra money, but they have built a platform which, you know, makes it open banking. And they also have had the solution that you can basically use their solution through a partner bank, but they also have now established actually their Finnish website where you can see different deposit options and start putting money into other banks with you know, obviously better interest rates. That's what people are the consumers are after. Yeah. So So yeah, that's I think they are already a unicorn, and they've been quite successful, especially in the Central Europe. I think in the Nordics they have started with some neobanks who are particularly keen in getting new deposits in, but now they're also making it a bigger thing in the consumer perspective, starting from Finland. But yeah, what do you guys think? Any concerns, or is this a great thing to have on the market?
I've got a whole lot of different questions running through my head, but I'll let Ville start.
No, I think overall, of course, it's good if this gives access or visibility of better interest rates for deposits for Finnish consumers. That's great. I also have a lot of question marks. So reading through the news, it's not entirely clear to me how does this work in practice. So it's clear that they're integrating multiple banks with different kinds of savings products that they can then offer and then allow people to move money into those savings facilities and have, again, this aggregation element of savings products. That's clear. Also, what's clear is that because these are licensed banks that they're working with in Finland, the deposit guarantee guaranteed by the European Union's laws is 100,000 euros per account per bank. So that means that if you're distributing through Raisin into multiple banks, then that, as the way, at least the way I read it, means that it's again, that might be, if you have it like in 3 banks, then that means that you can have 300,000 euros worth of insurance for those deposits. But again, it's not exactly new. I mean, we already have these sites where you can get information about what interest rates are available from what financial institutions for what kinds of products. So this kind of aggregating information and having a calculator available. I mean, these websites are everywhere, even in the Finnish context. So the thing that Raisin brings here is that if you're able to basically through PSD2 APIs integrate the ability to move the money through Raisin, I believe. But is that really that big of a thing? I don't know. Again, questions more than we can get from the current version of news that we're seeing.
I actually do think that they had kind of their own infrastructure, and it's not built on standardized APIs. But now, actually, as if we finally get all the APIs up and running, and then maybe someday even the deposit and savings accounts in the FIDA, so then kind of their platform would probably be kind of obsolete because you would organically have the same infra, but not yet.
I have an awful lot of questions on this, and I didn't get clarity in reading through everything, but maybe that's because sometimes I missed a big picture or I missed a small print or something. But the first one is, are we talking about aggregation at the account level or aggregation at the consumer level? I.e., is this where Raisin will take money from multiple customers and bundle them all together into one savings account to capitalize on interest rates? Or is this where they'll take money from one consumer and spread it across multiple bank accounts to somehow try and capitalize as much as possible for the consumer? Right, because one way, if you look upon it, Ville, Paul and Janne all throw money in and then that all gets managed across best option. That's almost like a savings account version of an investment fund, right? Where my money is split across multiple funds to try and capitalize or maximize my investment capability. The other one is an aggregation of consumers, when we've seen things like that before in the past as well. I'm trying to figure out which way around this is, or maybe it's both.
Yeah, I don't know if Ville has a better clue than I do, but yeah, I honestly can't tell for sure.
Yeah, I mean, just having looked at the Raisin's UK site, which is again where they have most of their customers today. You basically, what you do is you just choose financial institutions where you put your money, and you explicitly establish that connection as a user of Raisin. The interesting bit, of course, would be that, and again, there's a couple of roadblocks to do this. But let's say for theoretically that you could do it, like you said, Paul, that basically you give your money to Raisin and then they will basically manage that money for you between different savings products to ensure that you always have the best possible interest rate at any given time, so that you don't even have to figure out what are the terms and conditions and what are the different timelines for different kinds of accounts. Again, you're kind of having like an active fund for for savings accounts. There's again some regulatory and consent and related legal problems with that possible setup, but that would be definitely an interesting innovation, I would say.
Well, KYC comes automatically to mind straight away, right? Who does KYC? Who takes accountability? Who owns the relationship with the customer? If I create an account with Raisin and Raisin creates an account with Nordea, is the account then in Raisin's name with Nordea or with me?
Yeah, and again, if Raisin would then pool this money solely, I mean, they have like all the customer funds in one gigantic pool, and then that gives you one aggregated interest rate, depending on how they distribute that money. Yeah, that's another setup again, but that would actually put them in the category of an investment fund, I think. And again, not a legal expert here, but I believe that that's not as straightforward as we would like to believe.
In my understanding, the Raisin is promoting that they are making it much more efficient for the bank, as they are handling all the administrative tasks like onboarding, KYC, AML compliance, account management, regulatory compliance, liquidity, and so on. So sounds good, at least from the bank's perspective.
It sounds good. And then the other question I have on this, like I said, many questions. Are you as the consumer then left with picking which savings account you want to put the money into, and what information are you given? Because even just as me, a fairly well financially educated person, when I look at different savings offerings from different banks, sometimes they on purpose make it very difficult for you to actually understand what it is you're getting. I mean, some accounts will give you an interest paid out on a daily basis and they'll tell you how much they're going to give you. Some other savings accounts will aggregate and tell you how much savings or interest you've earned on a daily basis, but they're only going to pay it out at the end of the year. So once you start looking at all of these capabilities put together, it's sometimes you're not comparing apples to apples. And is Raisin managing this for you, or are they just throwing all the data to you and you're left still scratching your head?
Again, looking at their UK website, I'm basing my information on this entirely. They are kind of leveling these products and having a side-by-side comparison. So you can actually make this apples to apples comparison of different options that you have for your money, but you do have to explicitly choose that you're going to use this savings facility for your money when you do that through Raisin. So maybe to Janne's point, they are doing this, well, easier to access information, easier to compare things. So again, be as a bank gives you potentially an easier way to make your product visible in this space, because again, if I Google like savings accounts in Finland as a consumer, I will get different kinds of results with different kind of reliability. I would believe that product like Raisin would be able to level that playing field and have the best products come up higher in the list, so to say. So I think it's a good thing to kind of have this trusted standardized source for savings products in general. But I guess the consensus, at least between you and me, Paul, is that there's so much more to be done in this space.
Absolutely, and it reminds me very much of for years in the UK they've had sort of product comparison sites for mortgages. Very often in the UK you don't actually go to the bank to get your mortgage, you go to a comparison site very similar to this. You say, I'm looking for a mortgage, this is the house, so on and so forth, and then that site will aggregate and tell you, well, here's the different mortgage offers that you can get from these different financial institutions, and do you want us to manage it for you? So, yeah, makes sense. It's an extension of that.
Yeah, exactly. And because we always have to talk about AI these days, I mean, the kind of standardization of this data and having it available through platforms like Raisin makes it easier for future AI agents to also have this to be a more effective tool. If they have to scour this information themselves from various sources of unstructured data, that result is automatically more unreliable with the AI models that we have, at least today. So again, the data quality enhancement here is something to take note of as well.
Yes, absolutely. Looking through all of the different news articles, I thought a lot of them were quite interesting, but the one that actually caught my eye, and purely just because we had them very recently on the podcast episode, was around Receipt Hero. You remember we had them on talking about digitizing of receipts. I subsequently, after that, downloaded their app and played with it, and finding quite some interesting value in it. I just wish there were more merchants that were onboarded onto it generally rather than any other way. But they have partnered with a Finnish company called Fenoa. Now, I have to be honest here and say that until I saw this news article, I didn't even know who Fenoa are, and I went to their website, and not being a native Finn and their website being in Finnish, I spent some good fun times with Google Translator and everything else. But Fenoa is a company that provides financial software, predominantly by looks of things, to SMEs. So this makes an awful lot of sense. There's an integration now and a collaboration between Receipt Hero and Fenoa, where Fenoa can offer digital receipts down to item transaction levels through their software to their customers. And I can see this being very relevant when it comes to things like expense management, when it comes to other things in that area. The main customers for Fenoa, like I said, seem to be SME and accounting companies. So from a Receipt Hero perspective, I think this was exciting and good. Good to see one of the fintechs we've had on our podcast recently continuing to grow. And nice and simple and easy. Nothing too complicated and nothing focused on war like your one was, Ville.
Yeah, sorry about that. But I think the call to action that we had in the Receipt Hero episode in the end was that you and me, Paul, would definitely love to have a solution where we don't have to deal with the receipts when we're traveling for business, for instance. So this maybe is a step towards that direction. And to take this into, let's say, a very, very current trend and question that we have is that the current AI tools. I mean, in the beginning, we joked around about the Studio Ghibli versions of our faces. But with that same update to the ChatGPT, you're now able to fake receipts with much better efficiency than you were before. So if you feel fully image-based receipt validation, that won't work anymore. The faking of these receipts, while always has been possible for a long time, just became super easy with these AI tools. So if you're having direct data access through aggregators like Receipt Hero, so that you have trusted and signed data for these things, and that creates more trust and resilience for the corporate accounting, for things like expenses and business travel management. So I think this is one step forward towards the goal that we stated in the Receipt Hero episode as well, you and me, Paul. So
no, you're absolutely right, particularly for very small SME companies. I mean, fraudulent transactions on expenses is a big issue, and we can go back to the early days of when you and I started working, Ville, where you always got stories of people falsifying expenses and making up receipts and everything else. So with this being a direct integration, it makes an awful lot of sense. I actually believe that even Uber now and some of the parking apps that we have here in Finland can have direct integrations to a number of accounting softwares. So you don't even get the receipt anymore as a consumer. The receipt goes automatically to the accounting software and it's outside of your control, which is fantastically good. So I agree completely. What about you, Janne? I mean, you're running around with Helsinki Fintech Farm here. So is this something that would be interesting to you, to have receipts going directly into your accounting software?
Yes, indeed, it would be. And I've been actually very familiar with both of the companies for a long time, and Receipt Hero, I know what's their goal, and I've been following basically the discussion around electronic receipt and structured financial data for accounting, and it's just like, I think the cost savings in a small country like Finland would be like, I don't know, 4 or 8 billions if we would move into digital receipts and start automating things. But now in the terms of like what also Receipt Hero's end game would look like is that, of course, everything is connected. That's the only way to make it actually work, that you have all the receipts there, and it's unfortunately very, very difficult, because we do have have the big boys like S Group and K Group who are running their own systems, and then Receipt Hero is working with the other merchants. So how could we actually bundle this all together? I do have some K receipts, and then I have Receipt Hero receipts. I'm not in the S Group now. I know they have been running they're promoting their business cards so that you could just operate in their restaurants and gas stations and get the receipts there. But it's obviously a no-brainer, but someone needs to kind of force these companies to work together.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it does come down to maybe, as with early days of PSD2, there is a need for an aggregator here again to pull it all together and own it. But there is, as we discussed, Ville, on the episode with Receipt Hero, that there is a big sort of assumed the data is mine and I'm going to drive value out of the data. So the large merchants don't want to share that data and believe that the value is theirs to hold. And in some ways it is, but there is a wider global good here as well. With that, we have gone through the news and we have rapidly started running out of time again. And as Ville always does it at the beginning, I always do it at the end. We always do still have to do a good but bad joke in our podcast. And as always, Janne, the honor falls onto you as we're doing the Nordic Fintech highlights. So do you have a joke for us that Ville and I can cringe badly at?
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
So, why did the football coach go to the bank?
No idea.
Something offside, something.
To get his quarterback.
Oh, fuck.
Good stuff.
Okay, we were talking American football there, not European
Yes.
football. Yes, okay. Fantastic, wonderful. Thank you very much, Janne.
As some people who have listened to us, our podcast from the beginning very well knows, football is football and soccer is soccer. So I appreciate the joke.
Yes, very, very true. Janne, you've got a conference coming up soon. Do you want to highlight the date and get our listeners to attend?
Yes, absolutely. So May 15th, we have the Nordic Fintech Summit. We're actually celebrating 10 years of Nordic Fintech collaboration, as it was it was 2015 when we got involved with the industry. And we'll have a great event again, conference, but then a lot of networking, side events, restaurant, karaoke, hopefully good weather as usual in mid-May. And then we also have Fintech Daydreaming there. So if someone is listening and want to meet these guys in real life, so I highly recommend coming.
Indeed, it's a bucket list thing for me to be in a conference with a media pass, which is going to happen now. So again, really looking forward to being part of the press. And by the way, if anybody has footage of the karaoke from last year's conference, I deny everything in that footage. So it doesn't exist.
You did actually highlight the most important part, both of you. We are going to be there as the official podcasting partner for Helsinki Fintech Farm. We will record a special episode from there, as we have done before in the past. If you want to highlight your fintech or anything specific you're doing, come and find us. We'll do a quick interview with you and publish it on a future episode of Fintech Daydreaming. It has been very successful in the past, and we hope that it will be just as successful this year. So see you all there, and it will be great. That aside, any final words from you, Ville, and how can people contact you if they want to know more?
No, I mean, I think we covered it all. Again, welcome to all possible few new listeners that we got through Breaking Banks. I hope you enjoyed this episode. You can reach out to me personally on LinkedIn. I post there every now and then. I'm active there. No longer active on X, for example. So LinkedIn is the best place.
Fantastic. Janne, if anyone wants to continue a discussion with you or find out more about Helsinki Fintech Farm?
Yeah, LinkedIn is good. So you can find me, Janne Salminen, or then Helsinki Fintech Farm.
Wonderful. And for myself, I am very active on LinkedIn. I also have abandoned X, but I do use Instagram. And as the podcast, we are on all podcasting channels. You can find us also on LinkedIn and YouTube and other normal channels. Please go and subscribe, hit the like button. And the biggest favor we ask, Share the podcast with just one of your fintech nerdy friends. Help us to grow. The more we grow, the more excited we get to share our thoughts, ideas, and guests with all of you. You can get us on our website as well, fintechdaydreaming.com. As always, this episode has been hosted by myself, Paul Krogdahl, Ville Sointu and Janne Salminen from Helsinki Fintech Farm, and we've been edited by Femi. This has been Fintech Daydreaming.
This is Fintech Daydreaming.